We're live.
Well, their rationale is in response to everything.
As opposed to being a live one?
Right.
She were here for the second item there.
For which?
Something like this.
As we start that.
That was interesting. Summary of responses is here.
We won't add much to it. It might be very quick, but we'll see.
Right. Summarize.
Right.
It is 6 o'clock. I can tell by the bells ringing. Time to bring this meeting of the Syracuse Planning Commission to order. We have old business, new business, both to address this evening, but before we do any of that, we will act upon the minutes of our previous meeting this month on September the 9th. The minutes have been distributed to the commission members in advance, and it'd be appropriate at this time if there's a motion for action on those minutes as circulated.
Move to approve the minutes of September 9th, 2024.
Second?
Thank you. Discussion on the motion for the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Minutes of the last meeting are approved. We move into the public hearing portion of our meeting. Just by way of introduction for those who were unfamiliar with the process, as each item is announced by a member of the staff, we ask that the applicant or their representative come forward to the podium, provide their name and address for the record, and then a summary of the application. Following questions from the commission members, we will invite members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the application to do that. And then likewise, we will offer members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to the application an opportunity to do that as well. We ask that comments be concise and limited to about 3 minutes. And where comments are offered in opposition to an application, we will extend an opportunity to the applicant to address those comments made in opposition. So with that, we'll begin with our old business.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Hi. We're going to ask you to move this designation of protected site 727 Comstock to PS 24-01 to the end of the agenda under other business. The reason being that it is not a public hearing. It is on the agenda simply for the commission to discuss the new resolution and vote on that.
Okay.
So there won't be any testimony. It was not advertised as a public hearing. It's not meant to be a public hearing.
Okay, it just shortened the front end of the agenda a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll proceed in that manner then. So we still have other old business items to deal with first, the first being the special use permit for Liberty Resources.
First on the old business agenda is SP 2417, a special use permit at 3429 James Street. Last it was here, we had to hold it because of the county.
Planning Board.
Yes.
And I saw the resolution from the County Planning Board is in our packet. They've reviewed this project. They had no issues with it. They did recommend that the applicant include a copy of their SWIP to the Department of Water Protection. And so they recommended that we include that as a condition of any approval action that the commission would entertain. Other than that, are there any further updates on that project, or does it remain as it was presented last time?
It does remain as presented. I think we added some landscape buffering from the last meeting, and we didn't, there's no SWIP to provide the county because the disturbance is less than I think the 5,000 square foot threshold.
Thank you. For the record, would you just add your name
I'm sorry,
there?
Terry Horse Landscape Architecture. I'm the landscape architect on the project.
Thank you for that update. While you're at the podium, from the commission members, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. In that case, we, I think, are in a seeker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Required.
We were discussing the agenda. Seeker was done last time? Should have been? Or did we do it last time? No? Okay,
No,
we
because we
didn't.
couldn't
Because we
take
had
any
to wait
action.
for the
because-
Didn't do it
county.
because you hadn't heard from the county yet?
Right.
Okay. I apologize. I'm still getting situated here. Has everyone had a chance to review the EAF Part 1 that's contained in your packet?
Yes.
Are you all familiar with the questions of the EAF Part 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Does anyone believe this project will have any moderate to large impacts?
No.
No.
Because you do not believe there will be any moderate to large impacts, I recommend you vote to issue a negative declaration under seeker and complete the EAF Part 3 accordingly.
Is there such a motion for seeker?
I move to find a negative declaration for seeker.
Second.
Discussion on the seeker motion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? That motion is approved. We may now proceed to action on the special use permit per se. Is there a motion for action on SP 2417?
Move approval of the item. Just noting for the record that the request from the county board does not apply here. As been explained by the speaker, there's no need for a SWIP.
Makes that requirement easy to address. Any other comments?
Second the motion, although we have 5 conditions listed on pages 12 and 13 that ought to be applied to the motion. If
Accept the friendly amendment.
Discussion on the motion as amended with the conditions. If there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So that special use permit for SP 2417 is approved. We move now to other old business, companion cases. And
Next on the old business agenda is Syracuse University Residence Hall Project, Z2870, which is a project plan review and re-subdivision R2443M1 for 776 Ostrom Ave. Syracuse University is the owner and the applicant is Jennifer Bybee, Assistant Director of Campus Planning.
please, good evening.
Good evening, Chairman Kulik and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Jennifer Bybee, Assistant Director for Campus Planning for Syracuse University. The office address is 1320 Jamesville Ave in Syracuse. Thank you for having our items on your agenda tonight. I'm going to begin by providing a recap The university has applied for project plan approval and also for re-subdivision approval in order to build a new residence hall within Subdistrict 8 of the main campus plan institutional district. The site has been zoned for university housing for 33 years. The project, as designed, complies with all the relevant zoning regulations. In addition, I will add that there is no increase in enrollment associated with this new residence hall project. The new residence hall will achieve several important university objectives. The first of which is to provide a modern prototype of housing for our students, of which unfortunately we don't at the moment have quite an adequate supply. Secondly, it will enable the university to relocate existing second-year students from another part of campus, from South Campus, to our main campus. And there are many benefits of this. It's going to bring the students closer to where their classes are, to where their other fellow students are who are not only second years but other undergrads. They will be closer, by being closer to the rest of main campus amenities, to the recreation center, to the health center, more readily able to access university businesses. There's going to bring an increased dynamism to the area and vibrancy, and not the least of which will involve reduction of vehicular traffic coming from South Campus to main campus. Won't need as many shuttle trips and cars of the students themselves. In fact, we fully expect that far fewer of those second years would have any need to have a car whatsoever because they'll be living right on main campus. Now, the application you are reviewing tonight is the same as that you reviewed on September 9th. That said, it's greatly reduced from what we had originally applied for in June. Specifically, and most obviously, the university has totally removed the 727 Comstock property and the site from the application and from the project as whole. The current application features 20% reduction in the number of beds, a 15% reduction in the overall size. We also modified the project to reduce the height of the A wing, which is the wing that's closest to the to University Place at the north, to 5 stories from the 6 stories that our original application showed. And we also increased the setback of that A wing from University Place. And those last 2 design modifications with respect to the A wing were really outgrowths of our conversations with members of the Rose Society, of the Dr. E.M. Mills Rose Garden, which is across the street, a little bit just to the east, within Thorndon Park. So what is new since September 9th is that the university has submitted, in response to any and all city questions regarding the long EAF or really on any topic, a number of documents and studies prepared by professional consultants. We've also submitted written responses to the public comments that were sent to you, the Planning Commission. So in total, the individual and net conclusions of all those professional studies and examinations is that the proposed project will have no to negligible impact. Among the information in the studies are historical research, including university archival photos, a stormwater analysis by our stormwater engineers, and indications of how we will fully comply with all the New York State permitting requirements, a traffic impact analysis, including all the level of service data, a cross-section of the site, and renderings of the Comstock Ave views that was in direct response to City Historic Preservation staff request, a landscape plan, also a wind study by ME engineers. The university also had hired local horticulturalist Terry Ettinger, and his summary report was submitted and is in the file as well. Mr. Ettinger brought to the project not only his renowned knowledge as a horticulturalist, but also his personal knowledge of the garden, because he told us several times that he actually lives in the neighborhood. So he's known the garden over the years. And his conclusion, including based upon the wind study was that there will be minimal to non-existent impact of both shadow/shade and wind current on the Dr. E.M. Mills Rose Garden with the project. We also have been consulting with our neighbors to the west, the Greek organization's housing. And in fact, just after 5, I was able to submit something to the file that they submitted today, speaking to this level of cooperation and dialogue, including that we will be working with them to address any screening concerns that they might have. They know that we will be building a retaining wall with a fence. So they really weren't able to get more specific at this point because we have to have further discussions with them about perhaps species and things like that. But we are fully committed to working with them. So back to the Rose Society and our really great discussions with them. University officials met with members of the Rose Society, in particular the chair of the Garden Committee, over the past few months. And although Mr. Ettinger's study indicated there will be no deleterious effects to the Rose Garden by our project, what became apparent is that the Rose Society has some items that they could frankly use a little bit of help with. And the university is happy to partner with them in such manners. This is things like edging and weeding, other things like that. I do have a list, copy of the list, because they submitted then a list to City Parks and Rec. And that, I believe, was just on Friday. And it's really between them to, come to that agreement. It's obviously a city-owned park. But the university is happy to be a part of that partnership in terms of providing person power or funding in order to help their list be able to be realized so that the garden can continue to thrive. I think that basically concludes my summary of where we are at this point. We have different members from our team who are here if you have specific questions, and we're happy to respond to any of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that was a great recap of the changes that you had presented at the previous meeting earlier this month, representing the significant changes from the original proposal back in whenever that was, sometime in the summer. So with that update, let me pause and see if my colleagues on the commission have additional questions concerning this project.
No new questions.
All set, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, that correspondence between the Comstock Greek Alumni Association is being passed out right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So with that, we will ask those who wish to speak in favor of the application to come forward and do that. And next, those who wish to speak in opposition to the application, come forward to do that. Provide your name and address and comments.
Members, appreciate this. I'm really not speaking against the project. I'm speaking for a good project, a very good project. I'm a long-time part of the community, neighborhood resident, and I've observed the site carefully. I've submitted a letter earlier tonight, just barely, under the 6 o'clock deadline. It is this letter, and it contains some more points for the file. Essentially, it's moving in the right direction. And essentially, from a neighborhood context and a city context, I think there's more that should be asked of the university to support their own project. What I mean by that is that there's many aspects of a project like this that impact the neighborhood and the university's long term. One is, obviously, basic safety. We're in a new era of traffic safety. One of the comments in my letter regards a statement from the university on how this project will address, for that matter, the university's overall campus safety for pedestrians and vehicular traffic relative to the new changes on street use due to the I-81 impact community grid contracts that are now being built. What that says is that with new north-south access from 690 East I-81, there'll be new changes to the way the university traffic on the whole campus. It's a dynamic time. I think the project's being presented in an overly simplistic way, and I don't mean that as negatively as it may sound, I'm saying it in terms of the complexity of a campus. I've looked carefully and been very happy to see the original master plan for the campus in 2003. There are many recommendations in those planning documents which are qualitative, thorough, and highly specific to land use and densities and the physical form of the entire campus area, including this site. Many of the aspects of this site from those recommendations are exceeded by this project. This project is much bigger than the master plan recommended. It does not have the articulation of facade. It is lower than and is a lower size population. It doesn't state the population, but it is oversized for what the campus plan said. There are other sites in the overall campus master plan that are perfect for this size project that may not be in the site of the university's current strategies for land use or which projects to advance first. The biggest concern I have, and would like to speak for the Planning Commission too, is ask more of this applicant in terms of the project size. I'm an architect and a planner and worked on, in my career, on 5 or 6 campuses on dormitory projects, and all I'm saying is there's more here than meets the eye. The project size should be looked at very carefully. I'm recommending from my experience and from the impact of this area, a project no larger than 400 to 450 beds. That's due to the fact, in fact, if I could take my phone and project up here, and probably somebody in the room can do that, I'll show you a picture I took the other night, 2 nights ago, and this street is absolutely full of cars. It's not an empty sidewalk like this. It's absolutely full of cars, bumper to bumper. Many times during the day, this street has become, so this is about street context. I think there should also be a traffic plan for this area by the city and the university that agree on what this street can take. Right now, this is a bypass kind of for city traffic going southbound to avoid the Comstock, Euclid traffic light and pedestrian intersection. There are many pedestrians at this intersection and the next, and this is just the nature of this block. And the concept of bringing more students to the center of a campus works the less cars you have at the center of the campus. This is on a perimeter. It's being used as a bypass roadway for bumper-to-bumper cars during rush hours, with students crossing at both intersections. Traffic lights that are correctly, because I walk the whole neighborhood, correctly, but not safely. Drivers don't follow traffic lights on pedestrian crossings. Pedestrians don't follow it. Right-hand turns are always eliminated. I should stop this part of the discussion. All I'm saying is this is a critical part of the overall plan of a magnitude project of this size. So there's project size, there's pedestrian safety. I think also we have other things going on here that must be addressed now. Vision Zero, which I was trying to go to earlier today, had an open house all day long down at the west, at the market, Salt Market, is a significant plan in traffic safety. 2 nights ago, I went to the I-81 project that I've been working on as a volunteer for 15 years with the traffic director for the state DOT, talking about innovative ways to stop traffic at intersections for pedestrians to cross all along the community corridor. And there are things going on now so that the pedestrian safety issues need to be addressed here. There's another issue. There's a huge population of walking students to the campus coming down Clarendon. Huge numbers. That's the neighborhood I live on, which is the east side area. And it might be very logical for there to be traffic calming measures, not more traffic, but less population and more pedestrian crossing prioritization at Clarendon that could go through this dormitory project and then continue over through the university property at 727 on Ostrom and then through to the campus that way to keep students off of the streets in certain areas. So there's areas that haven't been studied in terms of the complexity of university neighborhoods. I'll try and close up real quick. Location, I mentioned that. Alternative dome sites, I've mentioned that. I have photographs of those, excuse me, and they're all in the master plan. The one that is the best one that comes to mind immediately is the University Avenue parking garage site, which is the green strip of grass between the parking garage and University Ave next to the new temple renovation that's going on. There's an area where the master plan calls for 2 sets of dormitories on University Ave, east and west, that could be this reduced in scale complementing each other on those two sides of the streets, one of which is able to go ahead right now to a capacity of maybe 300. I'm not quite sure because I haven't all laid it out. The good news about that is it's on the connective corridor. It's adjacent to the new east-west traffic and pedestrian zones that are being developed by 81 project. So that's another area that I think needs to be addressed. And lastly, the campus community grid, yes. University PID, I think that there should be updates on the planned institutional development in the sense of parking reservoirs where the parking is planned for, since there won't, all of a sudden there's no parking on the site where the last time it was proposed there was a lot. That's not a small impact to manage or take care of. So that should be addressed. Also the campus sustainability plan, SU's sustainability plan. I've heard nothing presented about this, even though the charge for architects and planners is to, and the university is to address a level of sustainability for future building use, for its energy use through time and space. I think those are and the rest of it's quite clearly articulated in the letter. Are there any questions to the points of view I bring to you?
The speaker.
I'm happy to assist in any way I can. And again, I'm in favor of a great project for a dormitory on this site. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other individuals who wish to speak in opposition, kind of, to the project? If so, please come forward. We do not have any additional speakers, it appears. Would you like to address some of the comments that were just offered?
Sure, I'm happy to address actually every one of them. So as far as traffic, as you know, we did submit a traffic impact analysis with detailed traffic counts, and the summary conclusion was that there is no mitigation required, that the existing transportation network can ably handle the project. In terms of the issue of pedestrian safety, the university had very recently, within the past few years, worked with the city in order to specifically install accessible crosswalks along Ostrom. So we've already been taking numerous measures to that effect. In fact, a major issue with the traffic here is that we are decreasing the amount of cars that will go to the site because we are taking that parking lot and putting a beautiful building on it. And this is exactly what we read Rezone wants us to do. I can't think of any urban designer who would think that a corner use of a parking lot is actually a good idea. And we had addressed at the last hearing, when Ms. Murphy asked about parking, that we have parking on South Campus, so there isn't a parking impact per se, but it is a positive effect that we will have more pedestrians, which is, again, what we understand to be exactly the purpose of Rezone, to have a pedestrian-friendly environment and people using the streets. So that, I think, covers a lot of the traffic issues. As far as the 2003 master plan, that was actually done by the very esteemed architecture firm that we have working on the project now. And for this site, it called for a 450 space parking garage, which again, outmoded, not consistent with what Rezone would want, and definitely catering to the car, as a lot of the old zoning ordinance did as well. So we believe this is a much more progressive and urban design positive plan. Now I'm just trying to read my own chicken scratch here as I was furiously writing these things down. As for the more recent framework plan, it actually called for a much taller building on this site, 9 stories, which we're not doing. We're doing a much reduced version of that while still meeting our program. As for the overall project size, because as you can imagine, we've looked at this every which way till Tuesday, and the size of this dorm and the number of beds is actually totally consistent with about 5 or 6 of our other dorms. I mean, there is a prototype and there's a way in which it makes sense to build. So I think that addresses that. Also, I will add that, you know, the particular attraction of this site, not only has it been zoned for university housing for 33 years, but it has these very particular adjacencies to Shaw Hall, our undergraduate residence dorm to the south, also to Del Plaine to the north, and to Ernie Davis to the northwest. Ernie Davis and Shaw already have dining facilities. So we're really taking the best advantage of our existing facilities and building efficiently, because we don't need to build dining as part of this residence hall, because they can use the ones that already exist. And it would make sense that if we did need to build dining here, we'd be building a bigger building. So we've really thought about this very hard, and we think we're both, of course, trying to achieve our own programmatic goals, but also following rezone and building in a way that we don't need to build more than we actually need to, because we're building smart. So as for the University Ave site and the garage with the building there, it's just outmoded. It's a 20-year-old plan, and it's just not something we are pursuing anymore. Finally, I will say that in terms of the overall comment about kind of oversimplification, we've submitted a phone book of information. And so we didn't want to keep you here for 2 hours reading every summary of every single study. I did mention the different ones that we did, because I think that it addresses the breadth and the scope of all the issues studied by all these licensed professionals. But with regard to the parking, again, I believe we did address that. In terms of overall PID parking, we need to also keep in mind that the new zoning ordinance has much reduced parking requirements, which is actually great. It's, urban design friendly. So don't agree necessarily that there's some kind of an overall PID parking analysis needed. We have parking that has been sufficing, and there's no reason to believe we wouldn't have enough, because now the code would be requiring less. We want to build smart, we want to build beautiful buildings, and we know that we have an ample parking supply to do that. Finally, I will say about the sustainability aspect, we did actually address that. It was one of the comments that was, I want to say, I don't want to misstate the person's name, but there was a letter to the public that we responded to, and it was in the responses dated September 20th, and it addressed all these issues about sustainability. And I know, because we canvass people in the university who work on this, I could cite chapter and verse from it, but at any rate, I know that it is in there, because we looked at that as well. We also addressed in those comments how our particular building is sustainable. It's using geothermal as for part of the heating system. So anyway, we believe we've covered that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Jennifer? Question, I read the traffic study. I understand the issue is not any additional cars, et cetera, and the findings of the traffic study. There is a concern, I think somewhat legitimate, though, that Bob raised, and I experience myself because I live in the area. I drive by there almost every day, especially during rush hour. The pedestrian traffic does get pretty dicey at times, and with increased pedestrian traffic, I suspect that's going to increase as somewhat a problem. So I'm just wondering if you've given any thought to that, if you have any potential ideas for how to address that issue, especially during rush hours, class changes, et cetera. It gets really congested there.
Sure, I appreciate that. And pedestrian safety is extremely important to us. And so I think what at this point, we could guess at what impacts could be and if more mitigation is needed. But at the moment, we're going by the analysis of our experts. So I think we have to, to a certain extent, once the building is built, we have to see how everything's working. We have the pedestrians and student safety as our utmost concern. But I think at this point, based upon how it's been studied with very particular traffic counts, including special event counts, it would be premature to start to try to propose fixes when we don't know what actually might be needed.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions from the commission members for the applicant? Or from
I'm
the
sorry,
applicant
Mr. Lentz.
themselves?
Our attorney, Greg Fauché, was just reminding me that our traffic consultant actually did factor into the level of service the increased pedestrian activity anticipated.
No further questions, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. In that instance, we will now close public comment on these two applications, and we'll begin to undertake our seeker review.
excuse me. We will go through the full environmental assessment form part 2. As you know, it's a spot issue exercise. First, I'll ask if you're familiar with the FEAF part 1. It is in page 112 on your packet.
Yes.
Portion. All right, we'll walk through part 2 now, which is an issue spotting exercise, where we will be looking for no impact or moderate to large impacts on each of the questions and sub-questions. And just because a question might be checked yes or moderate to large impact, doesn't mean that it is something actionable under seeker. After we spot any moderate to large impacts, we will discuss the mitigation efforts the applicant is proposing. Just want to preface this by saying all the studies and letters were submitted, are posted on the City Planning Commission website under today's meeting, and they were included in the Dropbox link with your agenda packets. And the applicants have submitted 2 letters, which I'm going to read now because I'll be referring to them often, entitled Syracuse University New Residence Hall Stormwater Permitting Requirements, dated September 26, 2024, and a letter entitled Syracuse University Responses to City Comments, New Residential, Ostrom Avenue, Main Campus PID Subdistrict 8, dated September 20, 2024. With that, we'll get started. Question number 1 on the FEAF Part 2, which is on page 132 on your packets, asks if the action will involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. Because this is a project where the action will involve construction and physical alteration of the land and exceeds a numeric threshold, staff recommends that the board answer this question yes, and we go through the sub-question. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Staff has checked no for sub-questions A and B because the depth to water table is greater than 3 feet and the slope of the site will not be greater than 15% as indicated in the FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Staff recommends that sub-questions C, D, and E are checked moderate to large because the average depth of the bedrock is 3 feet. The action involves the excavation and removal of 38,000 cubic yards of material, and the action will last 24 months for construction as indicated in the Part FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Staff recommends that sub-questions F and G be checked no because the action will use an on-site underground stormwater detention system and will need to comply with the New York State Pollutant Discharge Elimination System standards for soil erosion control, and because the action is not located within a coastal erosion hazard area. Does the board agree?
Yes.
The applicant has offered the following mitigation which staff deems sufficient to address the moderate to large impacts in sub-questions C, D, and E. The applicant submitted the letters, and the letters state a stormwater pollution prevention plan is required, which must be approved by the city's engineering department and comply with state requirements. And the letters also state that the stormwater plans must comply with the applicable requirements of Chapter 17 of the City of Syracuse Building Code and the general permit of the New York State's Pollution Discharge Elimination System. The stormwater management system will avoid sediment erosion of excavated areas and capture stormwater surface runoff by using erosion and sediment control features such as sediment basins and sediment traps, compost filter socks, straw wattles, stabilized construction access, and storm drain inlet protections. The letters state that excavation of soil and bedrock will be accomplished using standard mechanical equipment, that there will be no blasting or driving of piles, that sheet piling and shoring will be used to stabilize the site, and that pilings will be installed by drilling and augering holes. Furthermore, excavated soils will be disposed of off-site, which the applicant proposes to be at the Hanson Jamesville Quarry Facility. This will mitigate disposal of soils off-site. The letters also state that noise and dust will be mitigated by complying with the City of Syracuse's noise ordinance and the implementation of standard dust management practices, which includes watering down the site and using stabilized stone construction entrances and lanes around the building. Does the board agree with these mitigation efforts?
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Question number 2. Question number 2 asks if the proposed action will result in the Question 2 asks if the proposed action will result in the modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site. Because there are no unique landforms such as cliffs, dunes, etc., and because there are no geological features listed as a registered national natural landmark, staff recommends you check no. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question number 3 asks if the proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies. Staff recommends you check no because the action will not involve construction to a nearby water body nor create a new water body. The proposed action to the existing water district and will not use surface waters. And the proposed action will not require the expansion or construction of a wastewater treatment facility as indicated in the FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question number 4 asks if the proposed action may result in a new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. Staff recommends you check no because the action will not result in any new or additional uses of groundwater. The water supply won't be from water wells. It'll connect to the existing Syracuse Water District. The action will not use the action will use existing sewer lines and will connect to the Metro wastewater treatment plant, and then will comply with the 1-to-1 offset for the county plumbing. And the proposed action will use the integrated pest management practices as indicated in the FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question number 5 asks. Question number 5 asks if the proposed action will result in development on land subject to flooding. Staff recommends you check no because the proposed action is not in a designated floodway within a 100 or 500 year floodplain, and it will not change existing drainage patterns, nor will it change water flows that contribute to flooding as indicated in the FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question number 6 asks if the proposed action will include a state-regulated air emission source. Staff recommends you check no because federal and/or state emission permits will not be required for any of the machines or mechanicals during or after construction, as indicated in the FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 7 asks if the proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna. Staff recommends you check no because the site has no threatened or endangered species or habitats of any endangered species. In its location, there are no registered national natural landmarks, and the proposed action will not convert more than 10 acres of forest, grassland, or any other regionally or locally important habitats, as indicated in the FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question number 8 asks if the proposed action will impact agricultural resources. Staff recommends you check no because the action is in a developed and urban area. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 9 asks if the land use of the proposed action is obviously different from or is in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. Staff recommends you check no because the proposed action is not near any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic and aesthetic resources, as indicated in the Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 10, impacts on historic and archaeological resources. Question 10 asks if the proposed action will occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource, because the proposed action will occur next to structures that are eligible to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. state registered of historic places. Staff recommends you check yes, and we go through the sub-questions. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Sub-question A. Staff recommends you check yes for sub-question A because the proposed action is substantially contiguous to the E.M. Mills Rose Garden, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and the fraternity houses on Comstock Avenue, which are eligible to be listed on the State Register of Historic Places, as indicated in the FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Staff check no for sub-questions B and C because the proposed action will not be located on or near a sensitive archaeological site or an archaeological site that is included on the New York State Historic Preservation's Office inventory, as indicated in the FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Staff recommends you check no for sub-question C.
C.
Yeah. Or,
Yes.
no,
C is yes.
sub-question
D.
EI. It's on page 138.
D.
Well, the D is other impacts, which we haven't identified. So then,
We agree to that.
okay. No impact. All right. Staff, for sub-question EI, because staff recommends you check no because the proposed action will not result in the destruction or alteration of all or part of the historic site or property. Does the board agree? To check no on that one.
Yeah, could you repeat that again?
Yeah.
Christian?
Yeah, I'm
'Cause,
sorry.
Again, I'm going back to other, because others checked yes, but there's nothing in the box, and then the two prior ones are yes. So
I think that was a mistake on the FEAF Part 2.
on 38. where
Yeah,
other is
so
checked.
10D, we checked no or small impact may occur on other impacts, and it's just blank. That was a mistake. We shouldn't have even checked it at all.
Okay.
I should say we haven't identified any other impacts. So it is correctly checked, no. Just for the record. Okay. Now 10E1, or 10E is if any of the above A through D are answered, moderate to large impacts may occur. Continue with the following questions to help support conclusions in Part 3. 10EI. Roman numeral 1, the proposed action may result in the destruction or alteration of all or part of the site of the property. We recommend you check no or small impact because there are no historic, there's no structures to be destroyed. It's vacant land and a parking lot. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Sub-question 10E, Roman numeral 2. Staff recommends you check yes for this and for the next one, 10E, Roman numeral 3, because the proposed action will involve introduction of visual elements which are out of character with the site or property and will cause impact to historic properties, the historic properties adjacent character. Does the board agree?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Christian, could you repeat that again? Because EI is yes, and E2 and 3 is no on my.
On page 138.
Yes.
Yes.
38, correct. I'm sorry, I reversed that.
This column is no.
Oh, it's no,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm correct. You're correct.
Okay.
The headings weren't carried over, so I wasn't reading them properly.
Okay. All right. Going into the mitigation, the applicant has offered the following study and mitigation which staff deems sufficient to address the moderate to large impacts and sub-questions sub-questions A, 10E, Roman numeral 2, and 10E, Roman numeral 3. The applicant submitted a shadow study dated August 22nd, 2024, a wind study entitled Syracuse University CFD Wind Study of New Residence Hall, Impact on Thorndon Park Rose Garden, dated September 17, 2024. They submitted the letters, as I referred to earlier before we started, and a prospective study to show the elevations of the proposed action and the fraternity houses at 727 Comstock Avenue. They've also submitted email correspondence in response to comments from Kate Allwater, our preservation planner, dated September 30th, 2024. The shadow and wind study state that the proposed action will not cause adverse impact on the operation and setting of the Rose Garden. The Rose Garden will continue to get 8-hour daylight and sufficient air movement for roses to grow and flower after the construction of the proposed action. The letter states that the applicant will use the following mitigative measures to mitigate the impact on the Rose Garden during construction. 1, implementation of the stormwater pollution prevention plan, which includes the dust control and the on-site removal of solid waste. 2, an installation. They will install and construct fence and a program to prevent subcontractors and suppliers from parking vehicles on Ostrom Avenue, University Place, and within Thorndon Park. After reviewing the provided prospective study, our preservation planner recommended the applicant to install landscaping features and buffers to mitigate the view impact brought by the proposed action on the western property line between the fraternity houses and the building. The correspondence email sent by the applicant confirms the recommendation and proposes the following mitigations. Construction of an 8-foot aesthetically appropriate screening fence along the top of the wall, the retaining wall along the western property boundary, installation of landscaping and trees along the boundary on the university side of the property line, and preparation to commit to mutually agreed reasonable funding to each fraternity house and to coordinate with them the types and locations of plantings for additional screening at the rear of the properties or the fraternity houses. Staff assesses that the proposed mitigation is sufficient to address any potential moderate to large impacts. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any questions?
I'll say thank you.
8 more to go. Question 11 asks if the proposed action will result in a loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. Staff recommends you check no because the proposed action is not located in an area that provides ecosystem services, is not in an area that is designated open space, is not in it is in a developed urban space, and the proposed action will not reduce recreational resources as indicated in FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 12.
I wish I had brought some water with me. You can take a break.
That's right, you're making us thirsty.
Yeah, I'm good.
That's a lot of speaking to do.
Onward. Question 12 asks if the proposed action will be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. Staff recommends you check no because the site is not within or adjacent to a critical environmental area as indicated in FEAF Part 1. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 13, impact on on transportation. Question 13 asks if the proposed action will result in a change to existing transportation systems. Because of the size of the development and the number of dwelling units, staff recommends you check yes, and we go through the sub-questions. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Yes.
So for all the sub-questions, A through E, we recommend you check no, because the action will not, there won't be a parking lot included with the action. It will not degrade any existing transit access. It will not eliminate pedestrian or bicycle accommodations or alter the pattern of movement of people and goods. The applicant has provided a traffic impact study which indicates that there will be no significant decrease on the level of service of the street or the nearby intersection, and the project will not provide, again, the project won't provide on-site parking for their students. Staff assesses the proposed mitigation is sufficient to address any potential moderate to large impact. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 14 asks its impact on energy and asks the proposed action may cause an increase in the use of or form of energy, of any form of energy. Because the action will exceed a threshold identified in the FEAF Part D2K, staff recommends that you check yes, and we go through the sub-questions. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Staff recommends that you check no on sub-questions A and B because the action won't require the upgrade or building a new substation, nor will it call for the need of the creation or extension of an energy transmission or supply system. Does the board agree?
Yes.
For sub-questions C and D, staff recommends you check yes because the action will exceed the numeric threshold of 22,500 megawatt hours per year of electricity, and it will involve heating and cooling of more than 100,000 square feet. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Excuse me. Really sorry about that. The action, the applicant included in their letters and their stormwater prevention plan, thank you, that there will be ground source geothermal wells, an air handling unit, heat recovery wheels, and high efficiency heat pumps. These facilities can reuse exhaust air steam to produce energy, thus reducing the amount of cooling and heating needed from the central heating and cooling systems. Staff assessed that the proposed mitigation is sufficient to address any potential moderate to large impacts. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 15, impacts on noise, odor, and light. Question 15 asks if the proposed action will result in increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. Staff recommends you check yes, and we go through the sub-question because of the noise increases typical of construction and the sensitive receptors nearby. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Staff recommends you check yes for sub-questions A because the action will produce sound above the noise levels. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Staff recommends you check no for sub-questions B through E because the proposed action does not include blasting. The noise will be during a relatively short duration and is typical for commercial construction in urban areas. Does the board agree?
Yes.
The applicant has submitted the letters and indicates in them that they will comply with the city's noise ordinance and that they will do construction during normal business hours, and if they have to do construction on Saturday or Sunday, that they'll consult with the central permitting office first. The hours shall be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. The noise ordinance. Okay.
9 to 7?
9 to 7?
PM to AM, yeah. Never mind.
Okay. Staff assessed that the proposed mitigation is sufficient to address any potential moderate to large impact. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 16. Impacts on human health. Question 16 asks if the proposed action will have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants. Staff recommends you check no because the site is not located in or adjacent to any site that had any contaminated spills, nor will the proposed action involve construction or enlargement of a solid waste management facility, and all the waste generated during construction and operation of the building will be separated and brought to waste management and recycling facilities. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 17, consistency with community plans. Question 17 asks the action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. Because the action is consistent with the development standards of the planned institutional zone district and is consistent with the university's adopted district plan for subdistrict 8, staff recommends you check no. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Question 18, consistency with community character. Question 18 asks if the action is inconsistent with the existing community character. Because the action is inconsistent with the architectural scale and character of the eastern side of Ostrom Ave and the adjacent Comstock Avenue to the west, staff recommends you check yes, and we go through the sub-questions. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Staff has checked no for sub-questions A through E and F because the proposed action will be built on vacant land and is not in an area of historic importance, except for adjacent to. It will not create demand for additional community services. It will not interfere with the enjoyment of officially recognized or designated public resources, nor will it be inconsistent with the existing natural landscape. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Staff has checked moderate to large impact for sub-question E because Ostrom Avenue has successive single-unit dwellings on the eastern side of Ostrom Avenue. And on Comstock Avenue, the houses are 2 to 3 story fraternity houses. Does the commission agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Almost there. The applicant has offered the following mitigation, which staff deems sufficient to address the moderate to large impacts in sub-question E. The applicant submitted Exhibit E with the letters, and Exhibit E is a neighborhood graphic, a character graphic that shows Subdistrict 8 of the PID Zone District that has 4 small and 2 large-scale campus buildings, one of which is a dormitory, and that is between Comstock and Ostrom, and then the Life Sciences building. So that whole area is Subdistrict 8. Pull it up if you guys would like to see it. I believe it's we're getting there. There it is. There are 3 blocks to the north between Ostrom and Comstock Avenue and between Comstock and Walnut Avenue, which mainly comprise of SU-owned campus buildings with 7 dormitories in total. The applicant states that the predominant architectural scale and character is that of the university campus. that the single and two-unit dwellings along Ostrom Avenue are rental housing for university students, and the homes on Comstock Avenue are fraternity homes. The applicant has cited that the varying setbacks of the building break down the massing of the building and has provided landscaping buffers along Ostrom Avenue, including planting of trees. They have also integrated single two-story porches on the facade of the building along Ostrom Avenue that project beyond the main building's massings to kind of mimic porches on the single and two-unit dwellings on the eastern side of Ostrom Avenue. And the programming of the ground unit floors are for social spaces with different size lounges and the variation in stories between the four wings. So the front of the building on Ostrom and is 4 stories, while the back is 6. So staff has assessed all these materials and that the proposed mitigation is sufficient to address any potential moderate to large impacts. Does the board agree?
Yes.
So that's it. The spot X. That's it for the part 2. Should be. So now we'll move on to part 3. Okay. Part 3 is on page 142.
One 42.
She has it.
142, 143.
Yeah. So the commission, as the lead agency in this coordinated review under seeker, has thoroughly reviewed all relevant materials and analyzed all aspects of the action. For all the reasons set forth as discussed previously, the commission determines that the action will not have any significant adverse impacts on the environment. Does the board agree?
Yes.
Consequentially, a negative declaration will be filed, and notice of the negative declaration will be provided pursuant to all applicable laws and regulations. You're all set with this, seeker.
We need to do lead agency as part of the motion. Lead agency is part of the motion.
Yeah. Yeah, it said the agency and what he read, so you guys are all done.
So we don't need to make that in the motion?
You don't need
Okay.
to. Because you agreed at every step of the way. So
Yes.
You've made your.
Correct.
Thank you for taking us through that. Next time, we'll give you a little intermission in between somewhere so you can get a sip of water.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've completed that important step for this project, and now we may move to act individually on these two. Taking the project plan review first, I think.
Yes.
Having completed our seeker determination, is there a motion for action on the project site, project plan review?
Project plan review first.
I'll make a motion to approve it, and to acknowledge the conditions recommended in the staff review as a part of the approval. To also acknowledge the applicant's responses to both staff comments during the coordinated review, and further commitments, as Jennifer indicated tonight, i.e. the Greek houses on Comstock who are interested in a deeper buffer possibly, et cetera. So keeping all of that in mind, and certainly I think that we asked and you answered a lot of our questions, and in response, I believe it's a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion before us now.
Just add my appreciation to the comments by Commissioner Murphy for the extensive comments that were provided in response to the seeker and also the various input from residents.
Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. And we move to the re-subdivision.
Next on the agenda for old business is R20. New business is, we're doing this one? Excuse me. I apologize. R2443M1, the re-subdivision as part of the, for 776 Ostrom Avenue. The Syracuse University's owner, Jennifer Bybee, is the applicant.
Thank you, Christian. The re-subdivision application is to consolidate the 13 parcels that are involved in order to have one development site. All of the parcels are owned and controlled by the university. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
All set, thank you.
All set.
Our seeker review for the re-subdivision?
Has everyone had a chance to review? The seeker was for both.
For both, okay,
Yeah.
we're covered then.
was
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
was all comfortable, and then I was like, wait, no.
For all that reading that Christian did,
Yeah, come on.
in that case, we can
In fact,
move.
you can use it for the rest.
Thank you. In that case, is there a motion for action on the re-subdivision R2443M1 associated with the plan review that we just approved?
Move approval of the re-subdivision, incorporating it in the recommendations in the staff notes.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Discussion on this motion? If there's no discussion, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? That re-subdivision is approved. We move on to new business. Thank you to all involved in that.
Thank you. First on the new business, thank you. First on new business is re-subdivision R2451 at 403 Landon Avenue, 401 to 1.5 Landon Avenue, 148 Beard Ave West, and Landon Avenue, and 144 West Beard Ave. Caitlin Wright, Greater Syracuse Property Development Corporation's owner and the applicant.
Good evening, Terry Luckett, representing, I'm hearing myself echo. I'm Terry Luckett, representing the Syracuse Land Bank at 1941 South Salina Street. This is a simple re-subdivision to split 403 Landon, vacant lot that's been in our inventory since about 2021 between 3 adjacent parcels. The one parcel on Landon Ave, 401-1.5, 403 landing contains their driveway, so we're going to split off a 10-foot by 50-foot strip to them for their driveway, and the balance is going to be split between the two properties on West Beard Ave.
So the two on Beard kind of reclaim, the lot becomes a little deeper but consistent with what else is on the street, correct?
Correct. The lots to the, I guess it'll be the east of those two properties are all the same depth. You can see it in the next little map. Go one more. The lots to the east there are, I don't know how deep they are, but this re-subdivision will make them all comparable
Consistent.
sizes.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the
And
applicant?
403 is totally vacant, is that correct? That,
It's vacant land.
yeah.
That's what makes
there's
it
a
all possible.
The structure that looks like on the corner property there, is a garage for 148, is that correct?
Yeah, that's the garage on 148.
Right. And so that's what you're doing, the driveway access for that garage?
Nope, nope.
You-
If you go back to that diagram, the driveway access is the tiny 10-foot by 50-foot strip that's going to 401-1.5 Landon.
Okay, I see.
That's a
401.
two-family.
Right, right.
And there's a gravel driveway there that their tenants use now. So we're giving them that parcel, so their tenants have somewhere to split. To park, excuse me. Okay?
Other questions? Good.
No, I'm sorry, no, I'm good.
Thank you. Are there individuals, excuse me, who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward, provide your name, address, comments. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application, please come to the podium, provide your name and address, and then your comments. We have no additional speakers, so we'll close public comment on this, and we'll turn to our seeker review.
The short EAF Part 1 that's contained in your packet?
Yes.
Yes,
And is everyone familiar with the EAF Part 2 also contained in your packet?
yes.
Does anyone believe this project will have any moderate to large impacts under seeker?
No.
No.
Because you do not believe there will be any moderate to large impacts, I recommend you vote to issue a negative declaration under seeker and complete the EAF Part 3 accordingly.
Thank you. Is there a seeker motion to that effect?
I move a motion to find a negative seeker declaration.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on the seeker motion. There's no discussion, then all in favor of the seeker motion, please indicate by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Seeker motion is approved for R2451. Is there a motion for action on the re-subdivision itself? R2451.
I move to approve R-24-51 with no additional conditions.
Second.
Discussion on the re-subdivision motion. If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? R2451 is approved. We move on to another re-subdivision.
The next item on the agenda is a re-subdivision, R2452, at 128 Bellevue Ave and Lincoln Ave, and is to combine 12 parcels into one. The owner and applicant is Walter Dixie of Jubilee Homes of Syracuse, and it's in the R5 zone district.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm certainly not Walter Dixie. I am Twiggy Villieu, Workforce Director of Workforce Initiatives at Jubilee Homes, and my associate director is Desiree Dixie, sitting right back there. So what we're proposing is to re-subdivide all those lots into one, which are 12 lots that currently make up the Urban Delights Community Learning Farm. We are a program that's over 25 years old that works with food insecurity and youth, providing programming and employment for our youth employees. We have year-round employees and we have summer employees. This will allow us to, if you could scroll down a little bit, the bigger map with the picture, the diagram, there you go. This will allow us to take the farm from where it stands now to bringing it up to something that looks like this, that is ADA accessible. We worked very diligently with SUNY ESF, Dr. Emmanuel Carter and his students to come up with that, to do some soil testing with the USDA as well as Cornell, and to look at raised metal beds instead of the wooden beds that have to be replaced so often. And looking at the U-shapes, giving accessibility to anyone that might have a handicap or be in a wheelchair or just need some extra room to be able to maneuver. We notice sometimes that for our seniors, they can't bend over as much, and I'll get to that because I mentioned kids to you. So the higher that the beds are, the less toll on them it is. This side over here we call the commercial side because the focus of the Urban Delights program is to incorporate STEM into agriculture, look at a career pathway for our youth to be able to go into, if you see me talking to Sydney Johnson from SU, the Food Studies program, which is a very lucrative program in a career pathway for youth. So anything they grow on the commercial side gets vended for them either through a home delivery order at the regional market or at the downtown farmers market. We also do some year-round additional value-added products. Christmas time, we do zucchini bread loaves, and they sell those for a profit. They've learned to work with a baker to quantify it into small and large batches. But they're making hot sauce with Karma hot sauce from, we use a lot of peppers and stuff to keep away the pest and the things that would normally get in your garden and eat the good crops out. So they're learning to incorporate good crop rotation practice standards and also working with the Syracuse City School District on an FFA program to be there. This design helps out. The other side is what we call the community side. So that's where we get sort of our community members, some elderly members in the community that need that extra height on the raised beds and the metal raised beds. And we'll be working with Syracuse Grows to incorporate our first set of those as it comes in. This master redesign, if you notice where it says 15, 20, 17, 19, the only structure that's there right now is 16, which is our shed. We do have the pavilion, which is number 12, 2 and 9 already exist. But in order for us to be better at what we do, we need an area for cold storage and we need an area for dry storage. Currently, right now, we use our offices at 119 South Ave for everything that we harvest, but we don't have any refrigeration or anything on the site. We do have electricity currently, but we also need to get electricity to that second greenhouse so that we can continue a year-round opportunity. And at some point, there'll be an office there that will require some plumbing. So this re-subdivision is really important so that as we begin to expand and put on other structures in the coming years, we'll be able to do that with the completeness of it, not having to come and do something a couple of years away that we know we're going to do. So being able to get this done now will hopefully take care of some of that. The piece in the back is an edible food forest. Heard somebody mention Dr. Edinger. We work very closely with SUNY ESF and others to make sure that the design fits the neighborhood, that we're not blocking the viewway. There's a house on the other side, so we made sure that anything that we put in was not going to obstruct her view. Even included her in on some of the planting. So what you see is not actually trees, they're berry bushes and other fruits and vegetables that a community member that might want to come over, elderberry, things of that nature, and gather with raspberries and things that go along with the edible stuff that you can get as you walk along the creek walk. We are attached to the edible food forest that happens in the creek walk across the street from us. And we were lucky enough to have Syracuse University and others to come through and start to install those in our garden. We had them hold up, though, because we're about to go through this redesign, and we didn't want to, most of the stuff that got planted, we've had a way of picking it up, putting it in a greenhouse so that we can further the planting without damaging the plants. That's it.
Thank you. Did you say that the greenhouse is existing, right?
Yes, both.
And you
2 and 9.
Okay, and was there a reference in here to adding heat or something eventually, and that gives you year-round capability,
Yes.
or an extended season?
Electricity in the greenhouse. And that will be, we'll have heaters for the electricity, once the electricity is installed. But that will give us the ability to do year-round planting.
Year-round, okay. Thank you. Other questions for the applicant?
So the application is for the re-subdivision. If approved, there are 2 conditions, you understand, that are applied. You need to apply for a zoning variance for the 15-square-foot limited community garden land use, and you need to apply for any future alterations. Okay.
Barry, this Twiggy.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward. We have no additional speakers for this application. We'll close the public comment and turn to our seeker review next.
Has everyone had a chance to review the short EAF Part 1 contained in your packet?
Yes.
Is everyone familiar with the questions of the EAF Part 2, also contained in your packet?
Yes.
Do any of you believe this project will have any moderate to large impacts?
No.
Because you do not believe there will be any moderate to large impacts, I recommend you vote to issue a negative declaration under seeker and complete the EAF Part 3 accordingly.
Thank you. Is there such a seeker motion?
I move to find a negative seeker declaration.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on the seeker motion? There's no discussion. All in favor of the motion before us for seeker review, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? The seeker motion is approved, and we may proceed to act upon the re-subdivision itself, R2452, if there is a motion for action.
I move approval of R-24-52 with the 2 conditions stated on page 184 of the application.
Thank you. In a second,
Second.
discussion?
Exciting project.
Indeed it is. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Re-subdivision R2452 is approved. Good luck.
We will.
Probably at the beginning of the meeting, I should have noted that SP 2421 has been postponed. In case anyone was waiting for that, I hope that's not the case. But meanwhile, we had reordered our agenda to take PS 2401 now at the end of the public hearings under other business. And I think we're at a place where we can do that now.
Yep. So as you stated, PS 2401 is next to discuss. It's the designation of protected site for 727 Comstock. Syracuse University withdrew the demolition of the non-landmarked historic property at said location, and in response to the withdrawal of the demolition application, the Landmark Preservation Board voted at its September 12, 2024 meeting to revise the original resolution recommending the designation dated June 20, 2024. The owner is Syracuse University. The applicant is the Landmark Preservation Board. It's in the Planned Institutional District.
I think everything is explained in your packet, but basically the LPB revised their resolution and determined on the advice of council that a new public hearing wasn't required before them or before this body. And you'll do what you do.
For the record, there is a couple of opposition letters that I'm passing around. Maybe just one. Just one.
What is our action tonight?
These are the ones that were sent out
To
earlier.
vote on the resolution for designation. So it'll go to common council after this. The procedure is LPB votes, so they revise their resolution. It's detailed in the staff report, but they revise the resolution to remove demolition as the precipitating factor for the designation. The designation application itself did not mention the demolition, and they took the vote again and passed it on to you.
Sorry, Steph.
No, go ahead.
And none of the criteria or findings by the Landmark Preservation Board have changed.
No.
Exactly what I was going to ask. The rationale remains the same, the three
The
criteria.
designation is a separate part of the statute or the ordinance. So initially, it was triggered by the demolition because demolition requires you trigger it if they deem the property eligible. And then you go into this new completely separate procedure. So they essentially clarified their action by taking out the language that said this was precipitated by the demolition and said it's not precipitated by a demolition. So that's what's before you.
I think if there are questions, I think we have a representative from the Preservation Board here. If we need to clarify anything about where we stand right now with the latest action from the Preservation Board. Are there questions?
I have a question, I guess, to clarify for my own purposes, so I fully understand this, because I've asked this question a couple of times before in different ways. In the letter from Gregory Foucher, he challenged the authority of the Landmark Preservation Board to advance the designation because it's not as a result of the demolition application, which was the original reason for the demolition. Given that the demolition application has been withdrawn, the issue now seems to be what is the authority of the Landmark Preservation Board. And in the resolution that the Landmark Preservation Board prepared for the Common Council, it refers to page 203 in the rezone that refers to the authority to submit an application as their authority. And that particular passage reads, along with a similar passage earlier, that any person, group, or persons or associated may petition the Landmark Preservation Board for adoption of the designation of a preservation district or protected site. So understand, just for clarification, the authority is based on the fact that the Landmark Preservation is a group of persons or an association that is entitled to submit.
That's the legal opinion of the Corporation Counsel's office.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Additional questions before we proceed? Then if there are no further questions, is there a motion for, is there a motion for action on PS 2401, which is essentially a reaffirmation of earlier action taken by this body recently, but now with the designation disengaged from any action pertaining to demolition?
Move approval of PS-24-01.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's recommending to council. You're recommending approval
Right.
of the designation to council.
Right.
Final decision rests with the council,
Yes.
as always, on this kind of matter. Is there a second? Discussion on the motion for recommending designation to the council? If there's no discussion, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? That recommendation is approved, and that will move on to the council. Those are all the applications we have before us, but we still have one more item.
Yes, we do.
Election of officers for this body, which we haven't done in a while. And you want to offer a little guidance here, and also maybe also clarification on, are we electing for a 12-month period, the balance of the calendar year, some other period of time, just for
No,
clarification?
we're doing it late, so I would say for the balance of the calendar year till everyone, yeah, it's annually, you're supposed to actually elect your chair, although it's already October.
Right.
Well, tomorrow.
Procedures stipulate May is the annual meeting.
Yeah.
So if we vote now.
So May to May.
Until
So
May to May.
vote till the next annual meeting, and then, thanks, Barry. And what I would suggest procedure-wise is that the rules are, the planning commission rules and regs are pretty thin on procedure with this regard. So my suggestion is that one of you nominate a chair, and I'm not going to ask you to call for that because
So
you're
I'm
the
going to make
acting
that
chair.
motion.
Someone make that motion. and-
I'll move that Steve Kulik be duly appointed as our fearless leader until our next annual meeting or such time as we determine a election may be needed or necessary. And also to commend Steve for his remarkable leadership and thank you for getting us through every third Monday.
And I will also second that motion, echo everything that you've said.
Barry can't third it, but he echoes. I guess.
That's right.
You can call the question.
Yeah, it seems
You
very,
can
Call
call
the
the
question.
question now.
very strange.
I'll call the
Okay.
question.
All in favor of the motion before us, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those
I should
opposed?
also note, there are no opposition. I should note for the record that I think that we should hold the vice chair discussion and nomination for our next meeting or whenever collectively we believe is the appropriate time to nominate and elect a vice chair, if that.
I think that's okay as long as maybe you should designate who will act as vice chair in Steve's absence, because once in a while he escapes town. So
Rarely for these meetings.
the purpose for
but-
the vice chair is really just
Yeah.
to have someone sit in. So we can do it informally too until you're ready. We've got the chair elected and we can talk about it further. So if you guys don't mind being more kind of random if Steve's absent, then we can do that. But you do need to elect your vice chair.
Well,
Yeah, we will.
Could we stipulate that we can do this at the next meeting? I mean, it seems to me we can take care of what we need to between now and the next meeting for discussion.
You want to add that to the motion?
If you're willing,
You don't have to make a motion to not do the vice chair today. You can just say, Christian,
Barry wants to do it by the next
put it on the
meeting.
next
we
agenda.
can do it as
and-
soon as possible, yes. Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless Steve expects not to be here at the next meeting, we should be able to take care of it.
Expect to be here.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes. Is there such a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? We are adjourned till October.
Thank you for agreeing to continuing to serve.
Voucher letter?
Yeah, any more extra
Yeah.
Faucher's letter, because I want to give one for the, we keep the letters in the packet.
Yeah.
Just if you have an extra.